So make sure you come in a little bit to your right. To your right, not forward. Right toward me.
Come in a little bit to your right. Come in.
Ready to go?
Yep.
Welcome back to the Collingwood Rant in front of the camera. I'm Sly.
And I'm tapping to my feet, Spook.
And this is a special...
It's not special.
A special...
It just is.
Is a special trade rant.
Is it? What did we trade?
We'll find out.
Oh, good. I've been waiting to hear how we did.
Have you ever seen the movie The Game?
Is it about Collingwood?
Oh, it's brilliant. Alright, let's just look at generally what the clubs did. Gold Coast dumped tons of salary. Who are they paying up there?
Nobody now. I think it's good that you can give away players and throw in a pick for free, and the AFL will sign off on it. That's a good outcome for people, isn't it?
It's a great outcome for Geelong. I mean, you win the premiership, you get a good player, and you get a good draft pick.
Yeah, they didn't get a good player though, did they?
That Bowles is okay.
Is he?
I don't know. Not much Gold Coast. Who does? GWS dumped all their players and went for a full rebuild, and they went for that number one pick, so which I admire.
How could the love children of the AFL get it so wrong?
I don't know how.
Well, actually, Gold Coast never got it right.
No.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So they've dumped everyone as well.
All interesting with GWS, I mean, they were competitive. I don't think they were ever... Maybe the only time I thought they were genuinely a premiership threat was in 2016 when they just lost to the Bulldogs in the prelim. I think that's the only one they might have been genuinely, potentially could have won. The other ones, they've been sort of up there. I mean, 2019, they were miles off it. And
really?
You'd have to be shit to lose to them in the final. Hawthorn doing what they did originally under Clarkson. They just jettisoned anyone over 21 years of age, and they brought in all these draft picks.
They jettisoned everyone. It was like leaving the Rebel cruiser at the start of Star Wars.
Yeah. So, I mean, actually interesting, because I thought they should have done that a couple of years after their three-peat, when it looked like, well, you're just making up numbers now. But then they went and got, all these O'Meara, Mitchell, Henderson, all these sort of players.
Get rid of all the old blokes. Can you imagine the clubs that have picked them up?
Yeah, I just want to point out with Hawthorn, though, is they won the free flags. I don't know the exact timeline, but they won the free flags, and then they were up there for a couple of years with Mitchell and Hodge and Jordan Ruffhead, whichever one. They're Ruffhead and all that, and they fell short. There was that 1 year that they lost to Geelong when Smith had a kick after the siren, and that was 2016, and then they lost to the Bulldogs the following week. And I think they went out in straight sets 2 years in a row, whatever. But then they started drafting or trading for Jager O'Meara, Tom Mitchell, Ricky Henderson, Tyson Vickery.
You weren't having another crack.
They were having another crack, but
no,
I think
they were never going to have one.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think there's a lesson in that hey, you can go trade in all these players, but if they're not A-grade players, what are you doing?
Who's going to listen to that lesson, do you think?
We'll look at that. So, Cats got what they want with Jack Bowles, Ollie Henry. We'll talk more about Ollie Henry later.
Could we?
Yeah. So...
have you put a language warning up for this episode?
Fuck yes.
Good.
Blake Acres went to Carlton, so somehow they keep paying anyone who wants to come to the club.
That's sympathy money, though, isn't it?
No, I'm curious. I mean, you're paying McKay about $9 million, Curnow $28 million, Walsh, Cripps and all that, Zach Williams, Ahmed Saad.
Please, it's not like they've ever had a history of cheating the cap.
Meanwhile... Anyway, and we look like we're... Okay, so we're in year 3 of salary cap...
Dumping
remedies. And so let's talk about this.
Do we know which decade that dumping is going to end?
I don't know when it began. So let's look at this, because people are going to talk about Brodie Grundy as the dump, and then you get Treloar, Stevenson on top of that. But really, around that, you got Dane Beams, who also exited the club, and you got James Aish, who was another guy that they got rid of, and then you got guys like, who weren't part of the salary cap dump, but they left the club in Varco, Reed, Scharenberg. These sort of players would have been getting paid, not a huge amount, but would have been getting paid enough, and you think they're still struggling with this cap.
Wasn't it the belief at the time that a lot of those contracts were front loaded and towards the tail end they were getting paid less, or is that what we're doing now? And back then it was reverse, that you were back ending a lot of contracts, and that's where we got the bite on the bum from.
I don't know.
Well, you know
think-
everything.
I think you're making a misapprehension to suggest anyone down there knows what maths is. All right, look, let's just throw this on who it should be thrown on. Eddie Maguire.
Was he the list manager?
He was in charge of everything.
He was everything, wasn't he? He was Eddie everywhere in every sense of the word.
Oh, okay, so let's look at that. We've had shots at Mark Quarter. Why didn't he do something about the cap? There's other people there who were still there when Eddie was there. How much do you blame Eddie, and how much do you attribute or portion blame to other people who were there at the same time?
Well, that Ned Guy was meant to be a lot of the reason why this cap debacle happened, but this obviously, there was pressure, you would think, from Mr. Everywhere on particular deals. The Grundy deal, I believe, the Beams deal was a Eddie endorsed stamp of approval, and they seem to be the big crippling ones that's probably started a lot of this rot, you would think. You would think if there's that much involvement in those two deals, then there would have been a fair bit in some of the other stuff, but this is just pure speculation.
All we can do is speculate.
There was that year of money balling to try and...
That's 2017.
Yeah, to get Buckley a flag. You would think that that'd be a sense of, I've made a decision that's lasted now, what would it be, 8 years, or we're up to then. I need to validate that decision, and how best do I do that than try and throw money at winning a flag?
So how much do you blame guys like Mark Corder for not saying to Eddie, stop it, Eddie, stop blowing up the bank?
Stop, please. Well, there's going to be some accountability. I mean,
do you think there was while Eddie Maguire was there?
Well, that's the problem. If he's such domineering presence as
does Vladimir Putin have accountability?
Well, he's the only person in government, isn't he?
Well, I'm just because I'll say what I fucking say, and Eddie, you can beat me up. I don't think anyone could actually fucking stop him.
Well, that's where I was getting to. I think if you're that such a dominating and domineering presence, and you're calling the shots to the absolute extreme, I don't think too many people were saying no.
Should they have fallen on their sword rather than passively enabled him?
I don't know. Do you think if you're in that position, are you best served walking away, or do you stay and fight a fight, or think that you can stay and fight a fight? Again, I don't know this because I'm speculating on behalf of the board at the time. But that would be your two options, surely. We didn't have too many that walked away at that during that period. The board was fairly stable there for a while. I don't know. Maybe you think that there was an attempt to maybe circumvent that issue one way or another.
Back when I was living in ancient Rome, and I was part of the Senate.
Is Rome near Thomastown?
It's a little bit further east. Brutus and I conspired to just lay in wait until we could stick the knives into Caesar and finish him off, and then succeed him. Because walking away...
Sly.
He said that. And I kicked him.
Knifed him again.
And did a hammy.
Well, you are old.
Oh, but it's this point that some people make that if you couldn't do anything, you should have fallen on your sword. And I think you can play a waiting game to try and get to a place where you can fix things. But I mean, the amount of damage done, I mean, this is still going now. It's still resonating now. The fire sale was 2 years ago. Eddie Maguire, I remember last year or 2 years ago, I don't know, everything's a blur, thanks Dan. I remember on Footy Classified where Sam McClure said, we blew the salary cap, and Eddie Maguire just went nuts at him. He goes, how do we blow it? We played in the grand final, we played in the prelim, their accomplishments. We never play in prelims and grand finals at Collingwood without blowing the salary cap. And next time that came up, Sam McClure goes, I don't want to poke that bear again. And it was just like he backpedaled from that confrontation. I think, well, if that's what's happening publicly, I wonder what's happening privately.
But you've had two admissions of love children this year in GWS and Gold Coast saying that they've obviously blown the cap and they're dumping. So you would think that it's got to be a common occurrence
Oh, it is,
yearly
yeah.
for clubs to push the friendship of the cap. Nobody's because what are you going to pay now? It's you have to pay 95% of the cap.
I think at Geelong you can pay 135%.
It's 195%
Yeah.
at Geelong, and even then you don't have to declare anything.
Oh, why when you got third-party benefactors potentially?
So if you're running that close with margins all the time, it mustn't be that difficult to slip over, snap back one year, then slip over again, depending on how staggered some of these payments
I'll tell you
must
what my
be.
problem is with this.
How much tape we got?
It's the fucking 21st century. No one uses tape.
How much tape do we need?
This is what pisses me off. So,
This will be a long list.
okay, this specifically
Yes.
about this. Okay, we know Eddie backed Bucks to the hill as a coach, and there was an all-in. We got to win this flag. Go fucking care to key forward. Why are we getting 28 midfielders? Why are we getting 29 not quite rights? Why are we getting Daniel Wells at 46 who's breaking down for the 4 years previously? Why don't you go get fucking some genuine key positioners, some genuine A-grade talent? And you've loaded the club up with Moneyball selections, which is very Collingwood. It's fallen just short, which is very Collingwood. And no one has learned from the 70 years prior. And that's what really pisses me off. If we blew the cap and he actually went out and got Tom Lynch and
You'd be a little bit happier.
Patrick Cripps, say like that, I'd be a lot happier and I'd be going, okay, well, I can understand it. I look at that list and I wonder, how the fuck is that list over the cap? Who the fuck are you paying that it's still over the cap? And so I'm not talking about the current administration. I'm talking about previously. Who the fuck are you paying for that is so bloated over the cap? And the thing that Gold Coast in that show is this is happening. It is happening everywhere. It's just publicly the scrutiny has been on us because of how ingloriously we blew up. But it's like, who are we paying?
But that's the madness of it all, though. Let's say if the cap's 10 million and you're going to pay 95% of that, so you have to pay 9.5 billion, irrespective of billion dollars.
Billion. No wonder we're over.
Irrespective of how good or bad your list is, you still got to pay a big amount to somebody. It's obviously you'll have your marquee players and that sort of thing, but clearly you can see here with those two examples, like probably what we've done as well, is you throw money at players who probably don't deserve that sort of coin. That's where you can just see it. It's just a system that invites problems to come into it.
I would have thought that, let's take the years around the finals under Buckley from 2014 to 2017, and that list was very lean, for the want of a better word. I would have thought it would be like, we've signed Pendlebury to a $4 million contract. Pendles, we can pay that entirely in 2015 because there's no one else we're paying. And then we'll be clear the next year to do whatever we want. But, Tom Phillips was on $500,000 reportedly. Jaden Stevenson was signed to a $600,000 contract in his third year. So someone was grotesquely inflating the value of everyone.
Do you think that that's in reaction to what the market is trying to poach you from, or you trying to entice them without any form of contest to say we lock you in at this ridiculous price, you're guaranteed to stay, which you would imagine.
I think
in
it's
the
the
likes of
latter.
Stevenson one, that'd be a very quick decision to say yes, surely. Same with Grundy. I mean, you can't begrudge the fact that Grundy accepted $1 million.
I don't begrudge Grundy or Stevenson.
I'd
there.
ruck and tap to my feet for $1 million a year.
Yeah, but the money's there. Why would you say no? And why wouldn't you be pushing to get as much as you can? I mean, I think where Collingwood really fucked up is, and I said this 4 years ago, is when Grundy said, give me 7 years. I would have said, we're not doing that. We're going to shop you around, or you can sign like a 4 or 5 year contract. And they didn't do it. And they probably should have back then, and I understand why they didn't, because someone was so driven to get Buckley a flag. But they should have back then just said, we're going to be prepared to lose a couple of players just to set the ground rules for everyone here, but we're not going to overpay you. Go fucking elsewhere wherever you want. We want to build something here, and that success is going to be built on unity. For however Geelong pay their players, I mean, they still have a
they pay them in corn, don't they?
Yeah, probably
Corn or farmland, apparently,
or
or any sort of shit that people will swallow,
or people stocking animals.
But then we're not one here to be bitter about Geelong's rorting of the cap, are we?
Well, fucking good luck to if you can get away with it. Why wouldn't you? It's only cheating when you get caught.
That's it.
But this is the thing that just frustrates me. So it's like there's been this attitude of extravagance for quite a few years. Because coming out of the 210 flag and then, 211 grand final, 212, 213 finals, and then they dropped out. And guys like Dale Thomas and Heath Shaw left the club. Travis Cloak left. Dane Swan left. There's other players there, Wellingham, Dawes. Who was coming in that was taking up the money that these guys were freeing? I don't fucking know, because there was no one in terms of list. I mean, Jeremy Howe turned into an A-grade defender, but back then he wouldn't have been. He would have just been his speculative winger half-forward. Quinton Lynch, Clint Young. So, who was...
And they were probably all brought in on good coin.
You had all this money going out. Who was this money then being reassigned to? Because it surely wasn't the list, because that list... You had guys like Scharenberg and Freeman in terms of the draft coming in, Ben Kennedy, Jackson Ramsey. So these guys weren't coming up to demand that coin. I mean, Grundy did ultimately, but that was not until about 6 years later. So where was this money being reassigned? I don't get it.
I don't know, maybe we're keeping it in escrow until we then spent 60% of the cap on beams.
But this is what I said, is surely I would have thought those years that we didn't play finals, you would have said, yeah, Pendles is signed for 5 years for $4 million. We can just pay you all that in 2016 because we're not paying anyone else anything of any note. But somehow it's steamrolled. Then you go to 2017 where you had, Lyndon Dunn, Daniel Wells, Chris Mayne on really high coin. It just, I don't know, it baffles the mind that there was a psychology at this club 5 to 7 years ago that was just saying, buy this success. And we're going to do it by buying Moneyball players rather than just going and buying the best players available.
B and C graders, though. That's what wins your flags.
All this is I'm going to point, Eddie Maguire, this is you. We're still paying for what you did and how you ran the club. And people can...
He's still watching the show, isn't he?
I don't give a fuck. I couldn't give a fuck. Departures, Brodie Grundy.
Yes.
Pick 27, big salary dump.
I think the key one there is the salary dump.
I understand we're not paying what the media claims we're paying. So
how much they say we're paying?
But still about $350.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah.
No, I believe it's a bit less.
Yeah,
which is good. I think to get that dollars off the books for a bloke was okay, but his last 2 years were not great. Who has a lot of ruck flaws and around the ground flaws. I can live with this one. I can live with 27. So I think we would have pushed for the first rounder, and probably realistically we should have got one. But what was the full trade on that one? Was there anything else involved?
A bucket of KFC.
Bucket of KFC is not bad value, but we're sponsored by it. We get it for free now.
Okay. You don't deliver it. No. Yeah. Well,
which landed the Mitchell thing? That wasn't part of this, was it?
No, it was
with
part
the
of the
Higgs
Henry
movers. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So yeah, that was it. That was the
Pretty
entire
much.
trade. So look, I think that one is just more about shifting money off money. Hopefully, that is now available to spend on other B and C grade players.
I'll be interested in how we go in the next 1 to 5 years, because about the last 3 years we've constantly traded from position of weakness, where like Melbourne, as Bulldogs did with Trelaw, they can just sit there and go, we don't need this player. So if you want to keep him on your books, you can keep him on your books. Let's say how you fit him into your books still. I would have rather kept Grundy, despite all my criticisms. I would have rather kept him.
Look, I think it's an interesting one, and we spoke a little bit about this before. Not that the camera was on and people don't know this, but we didn't really get to any sort of conclusion. But I think that the proof in this particular pudding is going to be seeing how he goes at Melbourne this year.
It'll be interesting when he has like clearance beasts like Petrarca and what's his name, Viney and Clayton Oliver.
Ranger.
Yeah, yeah. That narrows it down. So it'll be interesting how he goes there with those players. But again, they should have traded him 4 or 5 years ago.
Well, you would have got 2 first rounders off Adelaide, I think, at the contract thing. But at the time, look, I was probably of the opinion with most people that he was probably one of the better players going around of his height. With deficiencies, but we probably thought I probably thought that with a little bit of astute ruck coaching or something like that part would be worked out, but it never came to that sort of...
I'll say this, I don't give a fuck who they trade, but you got to get value. So if you're on the trade like Nick Dacos, for example, and then someone said, we'll give you 5 first rounders, I'll go, it's probably going to do that. in terms of Grundy, I'm surprised that they didn't look at the list and project it forward and say, look, in a few years, the Goey and Moore are going to come up and Maynard's going to want the pay rise, so we're going to get squeezed. It's better to get rid of one of these guys when they're at the height of their value and bring some trade picks, which will compensate for the fact that we've been up for a few years, we've missed out on those picks, and we've burnt a few of them too. So let's fix this now when we're in control of the situation rather than wait until now.
I think so too.
And that's what disappoints me.
But you've also probably introduced a brains trust now with Fly and the gang, who probably don't see too many other sides having their highest paid player as a ruckman.
Yeah, look, I agree. Yeah,
and I think, at the end of the day, ruckmen help you win flags, but they aren't the reasons why you win flags.
Well, you look at the two grand final ruckmen were Reece Stanley and Tom Hickey. So Stanley's been repurposed from St Kilda. Tom Hickey's been repurposed from St Kilda too. Thanks, Saints.
So, I think you've got to almost cut your losses on that one and hopefully
look, I agree with that. I'm just
redirect the money to a better place for those type of players, like a Key Ford, or a good midfielder who's going to come in and contribute towards winning a flag. I think that's their mindset, that they're going to get more value out of those positions than they would a ruckman.
Oh, look, I agree with that entirely, but I'm just saying, given they should have projected what was coming, given the landscape, and they should have traded when they had all the strength rather than when they didn't.
Yeah, but there seems to be also a proclivity for clubs now to do these ridiculously long, big contract deals. You've seen Carlton have now pretty much put all their eggs into the basket with Curnow and McKay for how many years? About 48. It's either going to make you or break you.
Yeah, I totally agree. But in terms of who was going to put my eggs in the basket, I mean, Melbourne did it with Petrarca.
Yeah, well, that was the other one.
And Oliver also. The ruckman.
The ringer.
Yeah. The ruckman, given he's an athletic ruckman, is he still going to be athletic at 29, 30?
Well,
I don't know. And that was a question 4 years ago. So that's something I would have looked at also. Yeah, and just anyway, I mean, we were posing on this. Who would you lose if you had to lose out of Moore, Grundy, and De Goey years ago? We were asking this. So we were asking it years ago. And we're fucking schlubs drinking beer.
What was the answer? Because we often change the opinion.
No, it was Grundy.
Was it Grundy?
It was Grundy.
Well, who's running the show? It should be us.
Yeah. So
are we consistent with our opinions?
Oh yeah, and you change all over the place.
Oh, I can't believe that's true.
You were going for Port Adelaide last week. So, and just Brodie Grundy, if he played in that Sydney prelim, let's just go back to this, would have won?
I don't think so.
He did get 79 taps in the 2019 prelim, and that totally changed the tide of the game.
Yeah,
it totally influenced it in their favour.
Yeah. No, I don't think we would have.
I saw some fucking idiot, some moron, some total dweeb say, you can't blame Grundy for the 2018 grand final where he got 48 taps and did nothing, when he should be blaming the recruiters for not giving us genuine key positioners. And I'm looking at that thinking, but you got to deal with what's there. And what's there is what the sides you have, and Grundy's in the ruck getting 48 taps. So you can't excuse him from that and blame something else that doesn't exist. You got to blame what actually exists. And look, that game, there was a lot of problems, but Grundy winning 48 taps and just getting
most of them would have been to his feet,
or to
straight to
Eagles,
yeah, or even in the Sydney game would have been to the Sydney mids. I think no matter what, it wouldn't have made a difference.
Yeah, well, we can never prove it, but I think we'd have won 4 in a row. Oliver Henry.
In this day and age, we're all meant to be loving and understanding of people who have homesickness issues and all those sorts of things. I'll never be able to fucking reconcile how a bloke who's a half an hour drive from home had the pull so hard to go back to Geelong to be with family and play with his brother and all those sorts of things. I think it's one of the most insipid things from a so-called professional sportsman that I can recall in sport. But I think he's just paving the way for a lot of these moves in the future.
That'd be interesting. I actually don't have a problem with it.
No, I've taken it personally. I think out of all the reasons you could find, these were piss weak.
These were piss weak, but I'll say, when the mitigating factor is that Collingwood is one of the, if not the biggest club in the country. I've always said, if I was drafted by GWS or Gold Coast, I would have told them, look, I'm leaving in 2 years. I don't want to be at some shit nothing club. I want to go to it, and I'd rather go to a Carlton, some club I hate, but who has marquee, rather than hang around one of your shit clubs. So I can actually understand the player's motivation. I want to go to that destination. That doesn't actually bother me. It pissed me off when he started saying things like, he's indicated that if he goes in the draft, he won't go anywhere unless it's to Geelong. It's like, well, that's draft tampering.
Oh, yeah, that was ridiculous.
And that the AFL did nothing about. This is one thing, and I know we wouldn't have got the Tom Mitchell deal done. I wouldn't have done the Tom Mitchell deal. I would have said to Henry, you're going into the draft.
Yeah, look, I don't mind. Actually, the thing is, and we did talk about this, my issue with this sort of thing is you allow this to happen, you start to normalise the behaviour for young players, and they can come up with any pissweak excuse as a reason to go, I miss Sandringham, so I need to go and play at St Kilda because it's closer to home. You can fabricate any reason then to make it happen, and the club will bend over. You've got to be seen sometimes to take that stance, and I would have thrown him into the draft as well.
And
on that, just to be seen that sometimes we can be ruthless, because I reckon we do have a bit of a conceptual view that we are easy to trade with.
Yeah, it'll be interesting now that there's no salary cap pressures, how we deal with that. The other thing too is like people were saying, other clubs won't pick him up because he wants to get to Geelong. And I'm thinking, well, fuck you. If I was in charge of West Coast, for example, who finished bottom 4, I would have drafted him and just said, you can go sit out the year if you want, but we've drafted you for nothing, for like a pick 100 effectively, and now Geelong's going to pay us a top first round pick to get you next year. So you can go sit in your fucking little house and sulk, you pissweak prick. But you are now a commodity, and we are only getting you because we're going to get something out of you. So you can sit there, do whatever you like. Because that, like I said, I have no problem if you want to go Geelong. I really don't. It's like, I can see that. Like, yeah, I want to play for that club. Fuck all of you. I want to leave. What I had a problem was when he started trying to manipulate the outcome. And I thought, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, look, you get the sense that a lot of the feedback given from the manager over this is no matter what was going to be thrown in front of him, it was never going to be good enough.
Yeah.
As a deal, and I just have to.
He priced himself pretty much as a rebuke to Collingwood, saying, I'm not going to stay here until their hand was forced. I mean, I don't watch the draft because I have a life, but other people who did watch the draft obviously don't have a life. They told me when he was drafted, he looked obviously disappointed to have been picked up by Collingwood. So it's this whole thing of like, well, okay, so at what point does the AFL step in and go, look, the draft is meant to be a methodology of equalisation. So you go where you're fucking taken. And then if you're going to get traded, and this is one thing that does annoy me, players have too much say now in where they're going. It's like, I don't want to go here, I want to go there. Previously, it was like, you've been traded. Fucking pack your bags, you're going to bloody South Australia. That's the way it used to be. But now it's like, oh, no, we've got to accommodate where you want to go. Whereas Collingwood might have said, like, for example, with Grundy, they might have said, well, look, Port Adelaide's also interested in you, and they have a better pick. But we're going to have to give you to Melbourne because you want to go to Melbourne? No, fuck you. We're going to send you to Port Adelaide and get our pick. So this is where I think they need to rebalance it back towards the clubs to some extent.
I think and there should almost be a view that there should be some compensation that comes back. Because you've taken...
2 years of development.
2 years of development. We burnt pick 17 on him. And then 2 years later, he gives us the world's weakest excuse of why he wants to leave a program that's prepped him and made him ready for senior football. We deserve more than a second round pick back. But clearly, Geelong, being the wonderful people they are, refused, and eventually we obviously compromised as part of
the scuttlebutt that when he was first drafted, Geelong tried to scuttlebutt. A source tells me that Geelong tried to manipulate him falling to their pick, and you think how much of that shit's going on too. Like, I don't know if Collingwood spoke to Nick Dacos. I said, just play a few
roll
shit
over
games
for a year.
Yeah,
Why don't you take 2 years off in a pandemic?
Yeah, we'll get you at pick 96. But like, the thing I'm just trying to say here is, AFL has implemented all these equalisation policies, and none of them actually work. So the thing that fucking does my head in the most of all is, okay, let's say we're a relatively competent club despite all the salary cap burning. We bounced back up. We played the grand final. We dropped to 17th last year, and people go, we're going to finish bottom 4. We thought we'd finish out of the 8. We get to a prelim. we manage the club well, we get a really good coach, and as a reward, we just get priced out of good dealings. Meanwhile, a shit club like Carlton sits in the bottom for 19 years, gets Walsh, gets Wiedering, gets Curnow, gets McKay, out of no competency of their own. It's just that they're shit and they sit on the bottom, and they're not paying their cap, and they can go trade for Sard and Williams and all that, and they get rewarded for being inept, and clubs like ourselves get penalised for being competent. It's like a totally fucked system that you've implemented. Melbourne's the same. They just sat on the bottom. They didn't get up to the top to win a flag out of competency. They fucking got out of the top because they sat on the bottom and they got Petrarca and Oliver and all these sort of guys. And that's what shits me about the system, you know. And like people go, well, Collingwood did it too in 205, 206, 204, 205 with Pendlebury and Dale Thomas. And it's like, great, we did it, you know. But we only played the system for 2 years. These clubs have sat on the bottom for so fucking long. You know, Carlton's 9, so they're going to get another decent pick for being what? Shit. And meanwhile, for being good, we finish third, and our first pick's going to be, you know, whatever it is, 18 or whatever it is. So it's totally fucked, AFL. You got to work out a better way of doing this, whether that's aggregating the draft picks over a 4-year period or something. You got to actually fucking work out a way where shit clubs aren't rewarded and good clubs aren't penalised, and you know that's the unfortunate.
Oh, that's equalisation 101 though. Although it's amazing, I still find it amazing that Geelong pretty much got pick 7 for absolutely nothing other than taking a player and this steak nice thing, and the AFL didn't blink. If we'd taken Bowes, I'm sure that would have been vetoed at the 11th hour, and we would have had all our picks taken away from them.
I don't know how they fit Bowes in. I mean, I guess Sol would retire.
Well,
he's about 94.
he plays for the VFL anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
No, well, he's on some contract over they took from Gold Coast. Let's look at the guys who've come in. I don't know if you've heard about this guy, Daniel McStay.
Yeah, there was a few rumours he was coming to us. Did he make it, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Good.
He hit the bars right over.
Should I McStay or should I McGo?
Yeah.
Look, I'm probably...
He played a couple of good finals games.
Yeah, look, I did watch him closely towards the back end of the year. He vanishes quicker than Hoskin at some games, and other games he looks really, really good. I think he'll benefit from our chaos ball movement. I think he'll be handy, but look, he's a B grader, no matter which way you cut it. I think he's a stopgap. Yeah, I think he's a stopgap.
Look, the one thing I'll say about him is he competes, he contends.
Well, he
takes some pressure off Myercheck, who obviously looked decrepit in the last about 8 weeks.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, we do have an ageing top end of talent that these blokes could fall over in a heartbeat next year. And at least we've now got some depth to cover those positions. And the good thing with McStay is he can go back as well. He can pinch hit in the ruck. He's got his uses around the ground. Well, he's not a forward line answers by any stretch, but I don't think he's going to hurt.
I think him being there means they're no longer going to go with the Cox-Cameron combination. It'll just be one. And then McStay will probably play the Lee Brown role.
Well, Coxie's, 31? I mean, he's late into the game. He might have some durability. But again, you can't just have one structure and go in every week and expect it's going to last. I think we do have to have some contingencies where we...
Well, I think with some of those finals, like the Geelong final, Cox only played 46% of game time. So he was playing almost exclusively as a ruck and then coming on to just play as a ruck, then running off, rather than going forward. So I think if McStay, they're looking at him like he can stay forward.
And if Cameron goes down, at least you can throw Cox in the ruck and know you're going to get the equivalent service.
I think I'd rather go Cox as my first ruck. Bobby Hill.
Again, you got Elliott now is 30, or turning 30, or 31 next year. I think if you want to bring a dynamite, and I've always, since the days of Leon, I want another Indigenous forward up there, and he looks lively, and hopefully. He's as good as his highlights package shows he can be at times, but there's going to be some patience required with him, I think.
I think that sums him up, patience. I mean, with Leon Davis, we all love him, but occasional highlights aside, he really didn't become a consistent performer until about 2006.
No, great.
And that's 7 years into his career. So I think the same thing with Hill. The great thing is he wanted to come down, so he obviously sees his future at Collingwood, add some pace, add some pressure, add some tricks. I think that was something that was lacking from the forward line. We both love McCreary, but he doesn't necessarily get enough the ball and kick enough, goals. Ginnivan, the flip side, seems to get a bit of the ball, but doesn't do enough when he doesn't have it. So it's good also there's a guy there to put pressure on those two.
Agree.
Tom Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm really happy with this one. Twofold. I think, we've been smashing the clearances for what now, about 74 years.
Yeah.
He's, again, at his age and whatnot, isn't the complete answer, but it's a good little stopgap. And I think some of the knock-on benefit from that is also, too, that you're going to have him working with some of the younger mids and getting some really vital learnings. He's a ball magnet. He knows where to find it. He knows which direction to kick it, and does it often enough that he'll be a really solid contributor, unless of course he does his knee in round one.
For what we paid, I'm happy to get him. And same things.
And then the Hawthorn are paying a reasonable chunk of his salary, we're led to believe too. So win-win, chicken dinner.
Win the chicken dinner.
Oh, it's close enough. No one cares.
Billy Frampton, I believe you might have some mail on Billy Frampton.
Yeah, I know someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone who speaks really quite highly of him at his time at the Crows. Reckons we do have a beauty. He's great attitude, very likeable kid. He really started to get some plaudits. I think someone posted on EB&W this week some snippets of commentary from various games where he's been pumped up, because we'll look for anything as a positive.
I did say a few weeks ago that Malcolm Blight came out and spoke really positively about him. And, outside of the fact that he's insane, he's a really good football player.
Frampton's insane. That should come in handy.
Well, if he's coming to Collingwood, he's insane.
But, he's a big... How old is he? He's mid-20s? Yeah, so big, mature body. I think they see him in the same sort of vein as a roughhead type player. So, look, again...
I think he's a bit more of a floater like Lever.
How as good as he's been, I think the end's coming soon.
I think it came 4 weeks ago.
We definitely need another big body to stand up there next to Moore. Unless, of course... Do you think there's any chance that this means that these... Because we've also got that Dean coming in. There's another mature-aged player that they rated exceptionally highly until he did the ankle issue, or the plantar fantasia or whatever it was. If he comes good as well...
And they got Will Kelly still there too.
Yeah. Is there a chance that this releases more up forward?
I got that in my notes. If I was structuring the side, Moore would be lining up forward next year for me. And Frampton, McStay... Dean, if he's fit, that would be the key defenders. Will Kelly, if he can actually take the next step,
or any step really.
Yeah, well, that's a good point too. Moore would be playing up forward for me. I know I see the argument often. Why would you change him in as a defender? And it's like, to people who say that, fuck you. I've lost all sense of reason nowadays. It's like, well, Leon Davis is an All-Australian forward. We should never have thrown him back, should we? Oh, wait, we did, and he was an All-Australian fucking defender. It's like, things aren't fixed forever. And you repeatedly made the point that McRae mentioned we just can't kick 100 points. You throw more up forward with what game we're playing. This guy's a generational talent. What we've done to him, I've said this for years, is the equivalent of if Geelong went and recruited Cameron and go, we're going to play you at full back. Or, Sydney, when they got Buddy Frank, we're going to play you at full back. Moore does it reasonably well. And this is the other thing. I don't actually think he's as good a defender as people say. I think he's great at the intercept, the counter-attack and all that. Man on man, he tends to lose out a little bit. So he still gives up like 2-3 goals. So there's a little bit of a balance there. I think people like Wiedering and I don't even know any other defenders, Tom Stewart and all these other guys who play defence would shit themselves if Darcy Moore's up forward. And the thing I'll say about Darcy Moore, his pedigree, Peter Moore, because he went to a shit club in Melbourne, a nothing club in Melbourne, a terrible, terrible, terrible club in Melbourne.
And what you really say what you're thinking?
And it's still terrible. Because he went there, people don't remember him as highly as he should, because he played at Collingwood. That's another reason. I mean, he won 2 Brownlows. This guy was like Brodie Grundy, but could actually mark over his head and took some fucking rippers and could play up forward. I think he kicked 70 goals one year or something like that. He won 2 Brownlows in the ruck. This guy, Nick Nat, people talk about Natanui. He was better than Natanui by miles. He was better than Grundy by miles. He was as good as Gawn in the ruck, but he could run around and, he was a fast, like people always talk about the agility of guys like Grundy and that. Moore was even better on, This guy was a freak. His son's a fucking freak. We're wasting him at fullback.
I was at a function last week, and Peter Moore was the guest speaker, and the question was thrown at him about where do you think Darcy should play or should be playing, defence or forward. And as much as he lauded how good he's been as a defender, he was emphatic he should be playing up forward. Played all his junior footy as a forward. He was very, very good at it by all accounts. I think he managed to snag a couple of goals in his first game for us up forward.
I think in his second, third game, he kicked 5 goals against the Dogs.
Yeah. So, he's clearly, I think, as you see, he's got the pedigree to play up there.
And I just want to get back to the fucking people who will say, but he was shit up forward when we played him. Under Buckley's game plan, what a shock that any forward, where your key forward was Jared Blair at 4'7", playing centre-half forward, moving the ball so slowly, crisscrossing and just bombing it, that a forward didn't prosper.
Yeah, I think you if you give him a run, you make that decision. This is a long-term experiment of such. Give him time to acclimatise, change the way he's playing a little bit to suit. But it has to be something you commit to, not just do it for a quarter or one game and then throw him up back again. I think you've got to go for the long journey.
I haven't spoken to Craig McRae lately. No, but he's thrown more forward at a few times, and he did it in the Geelong final. It's like I get the inkling this is where he wants him. He'd rather have him up forward because McRae played in those Brisbane sides where they had 2 brilliant forwards in Lynch and Brown, and they had really good defenders in Michael and Lepich. But Michael and Lepich were just really solid punch players. They weren't counter attack and the half-backs did that, the Chris Johnsons and that. I think McRae looks the same way as this guy is a fucking dynamo and could be brilliant up forward. We're wasting him down there, but at the moment it's just a necessary evil because we're really lacking. And it seems like if Dean can get in there and Frampton and McStay, McStay's probably the most experienced of them. It'd be like, well, maybe we can forge a back six with Braden Maynard. Quaynor has played quite a few. He's still got
to stay down there.
Yeah, Murphy, Pendlebury offers 350 games experience. So, I think...
I say go for it.
Well, I've been saying it for 28 years. Why am I not captain?
Coach, like a broken clock, you'll be right once.
Draft swap a couple of years ago where we swapped that first round pick for 19 other picks. One of the guys, if not the first guy we took, was Ollie Henry. He's gone. Way to honour the number 35.
Champion.
Yeah. And this is the blonde-haired kid, McRae. he's been struggling to make an impact at senior level. He's been good at the VFL level. McInnes looked okay when he played a few games, but got injured and did a shoulder, so that probably means about 9 years at Collingwood. Is that swap looking a little bit questionable now?
Well, I think it's still early days on those two. And McRae, they obviously see something. His VFL, as you see, his VFL performances have been good. He's obviously going to be... Is he contracted for another year, or...
I think he must go Geelong. Bulldogs, sorry.
Why, did they clip toenails there better or something?
I don't know.
Did they put enough cereal on their Cocoa Pops in Geelong? Did they put enough cereal? I meant to say milk. It would have been funnier if it was going to be funny at all.
Okay,
milk would have been.
Yeah, I would have kept pushing now.
I just feel I have to explain the stupidity to people.
If they're watching this,
they're still awake. Yeah, look, I think they still see something of value there. We're obviously not privy to every training session or every VFL game these days. So look, you got to have some faith. You can't get rid of everyone, obviously, either. Some faith in the decisions made. I think I'm comfortable with that one. Who was the other one we were?
Magden.
No.
McInnes. Sorry.
Yeah, well, McInnes. Look,
he was looking okay.
I was encouraged up until he did his shoulder too. So he comes from the same football club where my son plays. So he's clearly a champion.
Should we bring Tom Phillips home?
Why? I saw that on Twitter. Why not? I mean, why don't we go every delisted player we've ever flicked and get them all back? Maybe if there was like a compression accident and they all squished into one, we'd get a good player out of them.
I'd look at him potentially as a rookie pick. Who should be captain next year?
Me.
And after you?
Darcy Moore.
So Pendle should give it up at 39?
At some point he's going to almost have to, but he's...
Well, you have to when he retires. You can't still be captain.
Well, he can.
He
can phone it in.
Look,
Hey, you there? Run faster.
the way it works at Collingwood is once you retire, you got to give up the captaincy, but we'll still be paying you for a couple of years afterwards.
Is he still wearing the number 1 jumper though when he retires?
Yeah, it's got a 1 on and a 0.
No, look, I think it'd have to be his last year next year, surely. Look, but then his performance this year was exceptionally good. If he wants to be captain, he'll be allowed to be captain. I would think, though, it's not a bad thing to think about transitioning to someone else. He's been captain now, Pendle, since
Maxwell retired. I don't know what year that was, about
2015. Yeah, so it's been a long tenure.
He's the longest running captain.
And
because most of them do Hemis.
Yeah, look, I'd probably give it to Das. Do we still throw it open to the players, or do they nominate, or is that how it still works? I don't know. Or do the coaching? I don't know.
They probably ring up Eddie Maguire.
Look, he may do the magnanimous gesture and give it away this year, but I'd be surprised if he would willingly do that. But anyway, whatever happens, I think Darcy will be next captain.
And just overall, when you look back, Richmond got Taranto and Hopper, and Geelong got Bruin, and Essendon or Lockie Hunter went somewhere. I can't remember where he went. Everyone's sort of
Africa, I think.
Yeah, everyone's taking these top end talents, and we're still sort of getting these money ball solutions. Are we just setting ourselves up for another fucking money ball heartbreak?
Well, I mean, if we're still dicking around with the cap, we just don't have the money at the moment to spend on.
But we've always done it, regardless of where we are at the cap.
Yeah, but we've also been in a shitstain of a situation with that cap for a number of years. If the rumours are true, and if this is it, and we're now on top of things, surely we start setting the sights on something big next year.
Well,
and that's what we should be seen to being as a destination club. You can do these little B's and C's and bring them in, and it's good if the rumour mill is true, and we're getting inquiries about coming to us. Players have, a couple of them have commented about what they've liked what they've seen under Fly this year, and they're happy to come with us, which is what you expect them to say. But let's for a second say that opinion is genuine. Then we start to appeal to a number of other clubs, especially if we have another semi-successful year. If we win the flag, it's a fucking fait accompli, you would think. But look, if we're up there again this year and consistently improving, you would seriously look at Collingwood as a potential side that would be challenging in a year or two, and you should be able to nail 1 or 2 big names.
You'd hope.
Because who was the last big player to come to us?
Not Trelaw, you don't count him.
Yeah, it's an iffy one. He wasn't really seriously established at GWS at that point.
I think he is like a lot of those GWS midfielders.
Full of potential.
Yeah. I mean, you probably before that Anthony Rocker, if you count him, he was a number 2 draft pick at a time the draft was not really recognised as being sort of the science it's become. You'd have to go back to Nathan Buckley as being the last big name they've ever gotten.
It's a long time between drinks.
They've gotten a few good players. Jimmy Clement became a gun, but he wasn't that at Fremantle.
Because the underlying issue, as far as I see it, still sits in that we have a competitive but ageing list. And over the next couple of years, these blokes are going to either retire or fall away with injury. We miss that mid-age group that should be carrying us to that next, to the replacements coming through. We still have a lot of kids with potential there. We're going to need to bring some seasoned players in to replace some of the ones.
I think they've done it a little bit to extent.
We're losing.
Depending if they stay, but like guys like Ash Johnson, McStay is, it's a little bit older, but Frampton and all that, they provide a little bit of that middle core. The problem,
some of them are unknowns though. Still,
that depends how they come on. I think the problem or the question about bringing in an A-grade talent next year is if they don't re-sign Jack Magnan, having to pay out the $4 million, they're probably paying him for the next 3 years. Out of curiosity, Brett Radden, any thoughts about St Kilda and Brett Radden?
What the fuck is up with that club? Would you 5-minute tenures for coaching? It's in their culture to sack them. Something has to come out of this, that Ratton's done something of an abhorrent nature or something, but he's just comes across as Mr. Squeaky Clean.
He probably did what Scott Waters did. Waters
told them how shit they are.
Yeah, that's pretty much what he said. From I could be wrong, but from memory, Waters just basically said, we accept mediocrity and celebrate it. And it's like, well, how dare you say that? It's like, well, that's what you are. You're a fucking mediocre club. And he was just saying, basically, you're celebrating being also-rans, and they didn't like that. And they sacked him. So, I don't know, maybe Radden just said, well, look, I mean, the thing, I think St Kilda's also a cautionary tale. They made the finals, then when they got all these B-grade players and these ageing stars like Paddy Ryder and all that, and Dan Hannaberry, and then the bottom just dropped out. So I think that's like a lesson in, you can pick up aging players who are sort of moneyball players, and what do they offer, and then you can pick up genuine talent, and they can input something like Luke Ball and Darren Jolly did. So it'd be interesting where Collingwood goes from here. Final thoughts on this year in regards to new president Jeff Brown.
I don't know how much we've talked about this, but I think
But now that the season's completed and
the underlying thing that I've liked about his tenure is he shut the fuck
the-
up all the way through it.
how about if you turn this into a premiership trophy?
Or this salad bowl. No, I like the fact that he's just not dial-a-quote like Eddie always was. I like the fact that we don't hear from him at all. In terms of some of the things that were the basis of his platform for getting the presidency, I'm not sure whether he's delivered on anything there. And most of those are likely to fall the way of the dodo anyway. I don't think a lot of them were achievable. But you say the things that the masses want to hear to get...
Old idiots got on board. Oh, he says we should never play a home game at Etihad. Yay!
Yeah, well, you'll pull that one off. And I'm pretty certain, like with the equalisation stuff, that Gill's just waiting for that suggestion to come through, and he'll say, well, you deserve more money, here, have more money. I don't think you're ever going to get away with those things, but they're popular things to rally the troops. But look, I think in the scheme of things, he's done pretty well. The boards, you don't hear from them. That's what I want from a board.
Yeah, same thing you said. I like that he just shut up when things have come up. There are a couple of things where you think he was going to quote, or a president would have quoted, and he just let it go, which is great. Again, they're going to judge back in 5 years. But I mean, the thing is, a lot of stuff we saw this year was already in place last year once the Maguire regime went. So long term, where do we go from here? The Moneyball thing still really scares me. It really scares me. That's like we just put together the same sort of Collingwood team that's scrappy, competitive, gets close, but doesn't quite get there. And it's funny. I mean, it's almost instructive that you look at, we won 11 games by under a goal or whatever it was, and then in the finals we lost 2 games by under a goal. So the 2 times we lost by under a goal was when it really mattered. So that's what really worries me. Next year, it's a very speculative year with the players they brought in.
Yep,
definitely. And the guys that they're relying on, like Charlie Dean, to come up and Kruger and all that. So, in terms of his presidency, again, I mean, look back in, I don't know how long he's going to be president, but look back in 3-4 years and go, okay, what did he do after all the dust settled? Because that's what's really going to be the best measure.
Look, shutting the fuck up is probably a great achievement.
Look, it's... Yeah, I think he's done really well in that. And but I think the one thing with Collingwood, and we talk about this a lot off camera, is to really move forward with Collingwood culture, you have to look at the history of Collingwood culture. And has he done that? I don't know. It's the concern for me is picking up these guys like Frampton and Mitchell and Hill. I mean, Hill's probably the one I really have my most money on. McStay is typically historical Collingwood culture of let's pick up these so-so players and hope they go to the next level for us, and generally they don't. I would have almost preferred if they just said, and including this year, they just said, let's just take a hit for a couple of years and then get the draft picks in. I mean, the dynamics of the list would have looked different because guys like Pendlebury and Howe and Sidebar probably would have aged out at the end of that. So I can understand they probably thought, we've got to get this shot in before it's too late, but... I look at that Carlton side, and I know I've been saying this for about 9 years, but that Carlton side with Curnow, McKay, Wiedering, Walsh, and Cripps, who are either all Sam Walsh, Adam Chera, who are either top 5 picks or retrospectively would be picked top 5. It's a really fucking scary side, and I can see what happened in 79 and 81 happening again, is getting there and just getting smacked by a much better, classier side. And that's my concern. If that happens, I seriously I think I'll probably... I'll be like one of those...
Swing from the highest yard arm?
No, I was going to say, I'll be like a villain in like one of those old superhero movies. You'll see me fucking concocting some machine to destroy the world. You come in, it'll just be all these circuits and that all wired together. And be like, once I push this button, it'll be the end of the world. And that's probably all I have to go with that.
Fair enough.
Final thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of unknowns, but it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. I think the last key thing. So what do we got? Pick 17 or whatever it is. Pick 25, 27. I'm curious to see whether we try and move up the draft order. With those picks, whether we swap some out or anything. I think if that is potentially maybe something that's already semi-half agreed upon, because there is, like what we did last year, there was no benefit in using that first pick because we were going to be forced to blow early pick, points, whereas all we need is the points. There's probably other clubs that are in a similar position who probably just need points and might be happy to give up an earlier pick. Look, if we move up draft order a little bit, that may be a very good outcome.
I mean, look, my career with the draft is, who the fuck knows what it means until 5 years from now.
No, but you don't get your better players these days in the early rounds.
Oh, you tend to get it like in the top 15 or so. I mean, Cripps was like 13 or something. So I mean, definitely that's the case.
It's not exact science, but it's a bit more of an exact science.
Yeah, I mean, it's weighted more in your favour, but still, I mean, I just meant sort of regardless. That's a long term plan, and like right now, this is what we're looking at.
Oh no, you can see what you see what Nick Dacus did. Like he's a freak, but potentially if you can see them openly, taking a key forward with the first round pick, if they ended up moving up to pick 9 or something, we got someone of quality, you'd be sitting there feeling a lot more comfortable with that type of decision. If they end up taking another 4'3" midget,
I was going to say,
then
why would Collingwood take a key position there?
Then you think, what the fuck are you doing? So, look, again, I think that'll be the next interesting thing to see who we end up taking. Look, because we had a lot of Hail Marys last year. A few of them look like they're going to be good. Let's see what they do this year.
Oh, I'd really like to target a player key position where the weight of the odds are stacked heavily in his favour, just through talent. And whether that's in the draft or someone like Logan McDonald at Sydney, one of the King brothers, one of these guys where they're genuinely potential superstars, rather than just sort of go, pick 67, Jonathan Marshall, come good for us.
He will one day. You mark my words.
Anyway, that's it from us.
That's it from us.
When will we be back?
Probably after the draft period. I think we'll do something, won't we?
Oh, I might watch the game. Later.
Catch.